She was bitten in the face 800 times by her dogs, but what she became will terrify you. Jacqueline's life changed forever on that fateful day. The once vibrant young woman, filled with dreams and ambitions, now found herself navigating a reality no one could have imagined. After the brutal attack, her face was left unrecognizable, a landscape of scars and skin grafts. But what she became was not just a story of survival, it was something far more haunting. When Jacqueline awoke from her week-long coma, the first thing she noticed was the absence of light. Her face was wrapped in thick bandages, and her body ached as if it carried the weight of 1,000 battles. The doctors spoke cautiously, explaining the extent of the injuries and the experimental surgeries that had been performed to reconstruct her face. Yet Jacqueline felt an odd sensation. Something was different beyond the physical scars. As the weeks turned into months, Jacqueline's recovery was not just physical. She began experiencing vivid nightmares of the attack, reliving the piercing growls and the searing pain of the bites. But soon, those nightmares bled into her waking hours. She started hearing faint whispers that no one else could hear, guttural and primal. Objects seemed to shift in her peripheral vision. She tried to brush it off as trauma-induced hallucinations, but deep down, she knew something was wrong. Jacqueline's scars healed, but her reflection in the mirror revealed more than just the wounds. Her eyes, once soft and brown, now gleamed with an amber intensity, almost glowing in dim light. Her senses sharpened to an uncanny degree. She could hear conversations through walls, smell a neighbor cooking from 2 blocks away, and see in the dark as if it were broad daylight. At first, she thought it was some bizarre after effect of the attack, but the truth was far more unsettling. She began noticing changes in her behavior. Crowded places made her uneasy, triggering an overwhelming urge to flee or fight. Her nails grew thicker and sharper, and her once vegetarian diet gave way to a relentless craving for raw meat. It was as if the attack had awakened something dormant, something primal buried deep within her DNA. Driven by desperation, Jacqueline sought answers from doctors, researchers, and even spiritual healers. None could explain the phenomena. But during one late-night internet dive, she stumbled upon an obscure study about zoopathological transference, a rare condition theorized to occur when a human is bitten repeatedly by animals under extreme stress. The theory suggested that certain aggressive tendencies or traits from the animals could be transferred into the victim. Jacqueline realized that she wasn't just healing, she was transforming. The whispers in her head grew louder, forming words she couldn't ignore. They weren't her thoughts, they belonged to the dogs. One moonlit night, Jacqueline woke up in the woods outside her house with no memory of how she got there. Her hands were caked in dirt, her clothes torn. She looked around and saw footprints her own leading deeper into the forest, where she found a half-eaten deer carcass. Her heart pounded as the truth sunk in. She hadn't just survived the attack. She had become something else entirely, something wild, something inhuman. Her transformation was complete. She was no longer just Jacqueline, the 21-year-old girl who once cared for dogs. She was a hybrid of human and predator, teetering on the edge of civilization and the wild. As the months passed, she learned to control her newfound instincts, hiding her animalistic tendencies during the day while prowling the night under the guise of shadows. But the change came with a dark price. Jacqueline's connection to the dogs who attacked her was unbreakable. They weren't just animals to her anymore, they were a part of her soul. And she could sense their presence, their thoughts, their hunger. She knew they were out there, waiting for her to embrace her new nature fully. Rumors began to spread about strange sightings in Jacqueline's town, animals behaving oddly, people going missing, and eerie howls echoing through the night. Jacqueline's story became a whispered warning. She survived the attack, but she didn't escape it. And what she became will forever remind us that some scars run deeper than the skin. Jacqueline tried to suppress her instincts, but the pull of the dogs, their whispers, their growls was like a siren's call she couldn't resist. Each time she ignored them, her body rebelled. Her muscles ached, her skin burned, and her dreams turned into violent visions of running through forests, hunting, and leading. It wasn't long before she realized that the dogs who had attacked her were no longer ordinary animals. Whatever had awakened in her had also awakened in them, forging a bond more powerful than she could comprehend. One evening, as Jacqueline stood on her porch staring into the woods, a chilling realization hit her. They were out there waiting for her to join them, and they weren't alone. The howls she had heard in the night weren't just from the two dogs. There was an entire pack of strays, runaways, and even wild wolves. They had been drawn to her transformation, sensing her as their alpha. Despite her fear, part of her felt exhilarated. For the first time since the attack, she felt powerful, in control. But control was fleeting, and the closer she got to the pack, the more she felt her humanity slipping away. Strange occurrences began plaguing the small town where Jacqueline lived. Pets disappeared from backyards. Livestock was slaughtered in ways too vicious to be blamed on coyotes or bears. The townspeople whispered about a curse or monster lurking in the woods, but no one dared venture far enough to investigate. Jacqueline knew she was connected to the chaos. Every time she fought her instincts, the pack grew more restless, more aggressive. She could feel their frustration as if it were her own. The whispers in her mind became deafening, urging her to embrace her role as their leader and join them fully. But she wasn't ready to give in. Not yet. One night, the tension reached a breaking point. Jacqueline awoke to the sound of furious barking outside her home. She rushed to the window and saw glowing eyes staring back at her from the tree line. The pack had come for her. The German Shepherd and Pit Bull, who had started it all, stood at the front, their massive forms illuminated by the moonlight. They weren't just animals anymore. Their bodies seemed larger, their movements more deliberate. They were evolving, just like her. Jacqueline's heart raced. She tried to shut the door to hide, but it was too late. The whispers turned into roars, and her body responded without her consent. Her muscles tensed, her nails sharpened, and her vision blurred into a tunnel of primal instinct. She didn't walk out of her house, she prowled. The pack circled her, their heads lowered in submission. For the first time, she felt what it meant to truly belong. She wasn't their victim anymore, she was their queen. The transformation was complete. Jacqueline no longer feared the darkness, she was the darkness. She and her pack roamed the forests, hunting with terrifying efficiency. But the thrill of the hunt wasn't enough to satisfy her. Deep inside, Jacqueline still clung to fragments of her humanity. She didn't want to harm innocent people, but the pack's hunger was insatiable. And the more she resisted, the harder it became to control them. One night, a group of teenagers ventured into the woods on a dare. Jacqueline spotted them before the pack did and tried to steer her wolves away, but the others wouldn't be denied. As the teens screamed and ran, Jacqueline stood frozen, torn between her human conscience and her animal instincts. She managed to hold the pack back just long enough for the teens to escape, but the pack turned on her, snarling and snapping in frustration. Jacqueline realized then that she couldn't keep straddling the line between two worlds. She had to make a choice, reclaim her humanity, or fully embrace the beast within. The next morning, the sheriff found paw prints the size of dinner plates circling the teenagers' abandoned camp. The town grew more fearful, and hunters were dispatched to track whatever was lurking in the woods. But Jacqueline and her pack were always one step ahead. As time passed, the legend of the Wolf woman grew. Some said she was cursed. Others claimed she was an avenging spirit protecting the forest, but only Jacqueline knew the truth. She wasn't protecting the forest or its people, she was protecting them from herself. For now, she could keep her pack at bay, but the whispers in her mind told her that it wouldn't last forever. What Jacqueline had become was more than human, more than beast. She was a living nightmare, caught between two worlds, destined to haunt the shadows. And every full moon, when the howls echoed through the woods, the town would shudder, knowing that Jacqueline and her pack were still out there, waiting.